as you've heard a couple times, I've said it a couple times with this fiber. Flax is one of the oldest documented textile fibers, and they've been found in prehistoric, Bronze Age, Neolithic, ancient Egypt, medieval Ireland, and Renaissance Belgium. So, this linen, this fabric, has flourished all over the world in different periods of time. And the linen industry in Europe in the 18th century really changed with the invention of, power spinning. So the use of the steam engine and some more advanced spinning machines that were mechanized. And, unfortunately, cotton replaced flax as the most important and widely used fiber because of these technological advances. But today, flax is a prestige fiber, and it's a result of, and it's a prestige fiber as a result of its limited production and its relatively high cost. So the term linen, really refers to fabric made of flax, but sometimes the term may be misused when it refers to other fabrics or fibers that mimic that look. So they may be linen-like. They may be garments that are made of thick and thin yarns that have that same heavy body and crisp hand. But we talked about luxury linen. Irish linen always refers to fabrics that are made from flax, and you have to be careful when we use the word linen versus linens with an S, right? Because originally linen was used. It was historically used in sheets and tablecloths and towels, and the word linens with the S also really refers to table and bed and bath textiles. We have to make sure that we use those words correctly. Some of the unique and desirable characteristics of linen garments are, their body and strength, its durability, its low pilling and linting. It doesn't lint much, or really at all. It has a pleasant hand, and it has that thick and thin texture. But one of the main limitations of flax is its low resiliency and its lack of elasticity. So linen doesn't stretch, and linen wrinkles very easily. I'm not going to say tends to wrinkle. It wrinkles very easily. So what's the structure of flax, right? Flax is made up of some individual fiber cells called ultimates, and they're spindle shaped. You see the image of them here. And flax is what we've talked about before. We talked about it's a staple. It's a staple length, and flax fiber averages between 5 and 21.5 inches in length, which, if we get to the longer side, 21.5 inches is pretty long for a staple fiber, and between 12 and 16 micrometers in diameter. And when we see that variance in diameter, we see that contributes to why linen has that thick and thin feel. So when you touch a linen item, it feels thick and it feels thin. So it has a very interesting hand to it. The other thing that's interesting about the structure of flax is when you put it under a microscope, it has these crosswise markings that are called joints or nodes. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like a stalk of corn or a piece of bamboo, right? So that cross section, those nodes, those joints, is what helps contribute to the flexibility of linen. We haven't gotten to cotton yet. That's the next chapter. But cotton, flax does have a really similar chemical composition to cotton. It's 71% cellulose, and we'll learn a lot more about cellulose when we get to cotton. So they really are cousins. We'll say that, right? They're both agricultural fibers. They both take some doing to be cultivated. When we get to cotton is really interesting because cotton is pretty much just one big cell. I have a really fun video for you to watch. We talk about fiber when we talk about cotton, but Short flax fibers are called tow, and long comb, better quality fibers are called line. So it's known as tow and line. And line fibers are ready to be spun into yarn, and tow fibers have to be processed. They have to be carded before they dry and spun into yarn. And generally, the tow fibers are made into heavier fabrics, generally for interiors, household fabrics, whereas the tow fibers are apparel quality. So for the next few slides, we're going to talk about the properties of wool. So get your properties table out. Get your properties table out, because we're going to talk about the properties of wool, and I will include the full table underneath this lecture. But compared to other fibers, flax does pretty well. Most natural fibers do better than synthetic fibers in terms of hand and aesthetics and durability. So let's talk about a couple of them now. So we're gonna talk about aesthetics, and flax is it's pleasing aesthetically. It has a natural luster that is softened by the irregularity of the fiber. So when we talked about how it's between 12 and 16 12 or 16 micrometers in diameter, that contributes to the irregularity of it, but it also contributes to the luster. And luster can be increased in textiles produced with this fiber, just by flattening the yarns during the finishing process. So of course, finishing always can change the aesthetics, but the finishing process of flattening the yarns, will help that. Finishes also add a wash that produce softer and more drapable fabrics. Flax on its own, especially in the larger diameters, can be very stiff, but the finer, smaller micrometer fibers that are then turned into yarns do produce a nice drape and a nice fluidity, so a lot of movement in the garment. All right, next we're going to talk about durability, and flax is it's strong for a natural fiber. We talked about in its staple form that it is long in length, and that contributes to its durability. But wet fibers are less durable than dry fiber. So it's really important that you take care of linen and care for it properly. We're going to talk about care in just a second. So flax is it's a stiff fiber, so without some finishings on it, it can crease. And if you know anything about, if you have any linen items, you know that they wrinkle very easily. They don't have a lot of, they don't bounce back. So repeatedly folding a linen item in the same place will actually cause the fabric to fray. It will cause the individual threads, individual pieces of the yarn to disintegrate. So you have to be really careful with how you store it. The nobs that we talked about earlier, those joints in the fiber, it does contribute to this flexibility, but they're also the weakest point. So you have to be very careful with linen garments, because it does, like I said, it does have a high tendency, a very easy tendency of threads or pieces of the yarn breaking, even in a finished garment, and which would contribute to the disintegration, the unraveling of that textile. So one of its best properties is that linen is comfortable. It is a good conductor of heat, so it makes an excellent fabric for warm weather. It is better than cotton. It is a really good conductor of heat, so it doesn't have static buildup. It's just an excellent, comfortable fabric in part of because of its soft hand, its ability to drape, and its comfort level. So when you really think about a linen garment, a linen is a relaxed garment, right? It's a relaxed garment for a reason. So care, right? Care for linen, it varies. Linen can be dry cleaned, it can be machine washed, it can be washed and used, and chlorine bleach can be used on it. Um, but linen, it's resistant to organic solvents and acids, and it will take high temperatures in part because it wrinkles so well. It wrinkles so much that you often have to use really high temperatures to get those creases out. Um, and there are some. I love linen and I hate linen at the same time because I hate ironing. But crease-resistant finishes are being developed to use on linen. Unfortunately, though, these finishes usually decrease fiber strength and make them more susceptible to disintegration. That's probably the best way to say it. To disintegrating, to those fibers breaking at the nodes, and and um, and just that garment not lasting as long as it probably should. So, there are linen just has wrinkling characteristics, and it really makes it easy to recognize. And you can, iron hard a wrinkle on garment, and by the time you get to your car and put your seatbelt on and get to where you're going, you're back to being a wrinkle mess. So the technological advances in the production of linen fabrics really is to reduce its wrinkleability. I just made up a word. Reduce its crease resistance and make it more aesthetically pleasing. In the previous section of the lecture, we talked about sustainability, and in terms of flax, it has a smaller environmental impact than cotton. We're going to talk about cotton in the next module for 2 weeks, so we're going to learn a lot about the environmental impact of cotton. It has many. But the production of flax requires, fewer agricultural chemicals like fertilizer and pesticides, and irrigation is seldom required, because flax is really just a naturally growing grass. So in the areas that it grows with relative ease. But the practice of harvesting the plants, so actually pulling the plants from the ground in order to get the longest fiber, does contribute to soil erosion, and that is one of the biggest sustainability issues that production of flax has. The other thing is removing the fiber from the stem of the plant does require significant amounts of water. Unlike cotton, this water is able to be recycled. So even though it uses a lot of water, they're able to recycle the water. And sometimes the disposal of that water, once it can't be recycled anymore, so once it is contaminated, can cause some environmental issues.